Hello and welcome back. We're finally in our last video for chapter 2 and we are finishing up on 2.3 today. So I'm going to shrink myself down and we're going to look at the slides. Chapter 2, cell structures and functions. And we're going to this part of the learning outcome. We're going to explain the following types of cells and tissues, which is plant cells and tissues, meristem, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, xylem, and phloem. And that means on this mind map, we are going to look at this section. So let's go. Part 2.3, part 5, plant tissues. Okay, so this is another short mind map. These are the types of plant cells and tissues that we will look at. And this is where you can find those different types of tissue. Di sini gambar raja ini fokus kepada dermal tissue, vascular tissue dengan ground tissue. Dermal tissue kita boleh cakap sebagai kulit tumbuhan. So the outermost layer of cells on the plant is called the dermal tissue system. And then you will learn about the vascular system later and you'll also learn about the ground tissues. Okay, sinilah taburan dia di daun. Taburan dia di batang, di stem. Taburan dia dalam akar, in the root. Okay, so let us start with the first type of plant tissue that we're going to learn about, which is meristems or meristematic tissue. We'll first talk about the structure of meristematic tissue. So meristematic tissue are undifferentiated or unspecialized cells. Cell meristematic tissue ni dia macam paling basic punya bentuk plant cell lah. Memang semua organel dia ada tugas-tugas ataupun fungsi khas. So they will be actively dividing by mitosis. Memang dia akan buat banyak mitosis. It has a thin cell wall. It has small vacuole. The meristematic cells are closely packed. Dia disusun dengan padat. Then it also has large nucleus and a dense cytoplasm. Cytoplasm dia ada banyak organel. Itu maksud dense. The function of meristematic tissue is it has the capability to perform cell division, which means meristematic tissue is important for growth of the plant, untuk tumbesaran tumbuhan tersebut. And when we talk about meristematic tissue, we can divide it into two types of meristematic tissue. The first is for primary growth, which is the apical meristem. And the one for secondary growth is called the lateral meristem. Okay. Untuk part ini saya bawa assistant saya. Ini adalah assistant saya, 2 batang. Okay, ini adalah kangkung yang hari itu kami petik, tapi batang dia kami tidak buang. Saya celup dalam air. Dan dia start tumbuh akar, dia start tumbuh daun. So let's look at this kangkung plant and talk about where you can find the meristematic tissue. We'll first start with the apical meristem. The apical meristem can be found in the shoots and roots of the plant. Dia boleh dijumpa di hujung shoot dengan root. So that means if we're looking at this plant, here is where you will find the apical meristem. Down here, di hujung-hujung akar ini, the tips of these roots is where you will find more apical meristem. Secondary or lateral meristem will be found inside the stem. So di dalam batang ini, somewhere dalam batang ini akan ada banyak lateral meristem. And it will be throughout the plant, okay? Sini sampai ke akar ada lateral meristem. Okay. Let us continue looking at the slides. So this is continuing my point about where you can find apical meristem. Ini gambar apical meristem di bawah microscope. You can see here it's found at the tips of roots and shoots and also in the axillary bud. Here you can see the axillary bud or lateral buds on the leaf, and I will show you on my assistant again. Okay, as you can see on my kangkong assistant, this is a little node on the stem where you can grow new leaves, and new shoots, new leaves are indeed growing here. So this is where you can find the axillary bud. So sini kita boleh jumpa apical meristem in axillary buds. So kalau kita biarkan saja, kemungkinan dia akan tumbuh daun, kemungkinan dia akan tumbuh akar. So in my second assistant, you will see that on my second assistant, the axillary bud became shoots and also roots at the same time. Kalau kamu mau tanam tambahan baru, kalau kamu, say you are propagating from a stem, you cut something, you want to tanam using the cut part, make sure you have the axillary bud. Kalau tidak, tiada gunalah kamu tanam ranting-ranting itu. So here you see it grew the root and also the shoot. Okay, assistant saya sudah berehat. Kita sambung dengan slide. The function of apical meristem is for primary growth of shoots and roots. So it will increase the length of the plant. There are three types of apical meristem. They are the protoderm, ground meristem, and procambium. So tiga jenis apical meristem ini merujuk kepada lepas sel-sel meristem ini sudah cukup matang, pada masa akan datang, dia akan jadi dermal layer. Ataupun yang jenis kedua akan jadi ground tissue. Jenis ketiga akan jadi sebahagian daripada cambium. If you want, you can Google and learn more about each of those. If not, enough you learn until that point. Let us move on with the next type of meristem tissue, which is the lateral meristem. Lateral meristem, ini yang saya cakap dia ada di bahagian batang kangkung itu. Ada dua jenis juga. There are two types of lateral meristem, which is the vascular cambium and the cork cambium. That means, when it is dividing by mitosis, yang vascular cambium semakin dia membesar, semakin dia matang, dia akan menjadi xylem dengan phloem. Secondary xylem and phloem means dia jadi lapisan baru. Cork cambium means as the cells divide and mature, they will replace the epidermis with a tougher periderm. Dia macam menjadi kulit untuk pokok itu. The cork cambium you will see more in woody plants. Okay, cork cambium ni kamu lebih nampak dia punya fungsi dalam tumbuhan yang batang dia keras. Macam pokok apple, pokok durian, pokok rambutan dan sebagainya. Bukan pada lalang-lalang ataupun kangkung-kangkung. Okay, so the function of the lateral meristem is to produce new cells for secondary growth, and these will increase the diameter of the plant. Okay, let us continue. That is it for the meristematic tissue. Setakat itu saja untuk meristematic tissue. Sekarang kita tengok batang, the stem of these two plants. This is what they look like under the microscope. And this is giving you a clue that we are going to look at ground tissue and vascular tissue. Kita move on sudah ya. Okay, so this is more monocot root and dicot root. I hope you still remember what is monocotyledon and dicotyledon. Try to Google it if you don't, or look at your SPM notes if you still have them. Okay, I'm going to continue. Now, we are done with meristematic tissue. We are going to talk about permanent tissue. Apa itu permanent tissue? Tisu yang akan kekal sampai dia mati. Dia adalah tisu yang sudah differentiated ataupun specialized tissues. What does it mean by differentiated or specialized tissue? It means now they have their own special function. Dari segi fizikal dia sudah berubah, dan dari segi fungsi dia akan ada tugas-tugas khas. plant tissues that they are usually plant tissues that lost the capability to divide, so they are incapable of meristematic activity and has completed its growth. Dia tidak boleh sudah buat mitosis dan dia sudah selesai pembesaran dia. Okay? Memang dia paling matang sudahlah kalau dia sudah digelar sebagai permanent tissue. Permanent tissue kita bahagikan kepada dua jenis lagi, iaitu ground tissue dan vascular tissue. Ground tissue, we will look at parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, and for vascular tissue, we will look at xylem and phloem. Okay. We're going to focus on the ground tissues first. Ground tissue, you need to know this diagram. Okay, kamu perlu pandai tengok table ini. Kamu tengok saja dia punya gambar aja, kamu tahu dia sel apa dan kamu boleh jelaskan dia apa. Mari kita start dengan yang pertama, paling kiri, parenchyma tissue. How is the structure of the parenchyma tissue? Well, first of all, we talk about how it is a living cell. Living cell means bila dia matang, dia masih ada dia punya cytoplasm, dia masih ada dia punya nucleus, dia masih boleh metabolize, menjalankan proses-proses metabolisme. So parenchyma is a living cell with nucleus. How is the shape? The shape is isodimetric or spherical. Dia macam bulat-bulat tapi tidak berapa bulat. Jadi kita panggil dia isodimetric ataupun spherical. How is the cell wall? Parenchyma have thin and flexible primary cell wall that consists of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin. So, dia ada satu lapisan cell wall sahaja yang agak nipis, agak anjal, digelar sebagai primary cell wall. Primary cell wall terdiri daripada ini, cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin. They have large central vacuole untuk dia simpan apa-apa yang dia perlu simpan. They are loosely packed with large intercellular air spaces. Disusun secara longgar. Itu direct translate loosely packed with large intercellular air spaces. Large intercellular air spaces means antara satu sel dengan sel yang lain kamu akan nampak ada rongga atau ada ruangan kosong. Ruangan kosong di antara sel digelar sebagai intercellular space. And they are alive at maturity. So this extra point, parenchyma cells may remain meristematic at maturity. Sesetengah parenchyma cell, kalau terpaksa, dia masih boleh buat mitosis, cell division. Kalau perlulah. Out of the ground tissues, only the parenchyma cells can remain meristematic at maturity. Okay, we are continuing. What is the function of parenchyma? Apa guna parenchyma yang nampak lembut-lembut, comel-comel ini? Fungsi dia adalah, they have large central vacuole to store organic substances, untuk simpan bahan-bahan organik. They have mesophyll cells that contain chloroplast for photosynthesis. Ini tidak perlu saya jelaskan. They have large intercellular air space to allow gaseous exchange, terutamanya di dalam daun. Parenchyma cells will have large intercellular air space to allow gaseous exchange. And some parenchyma cells will contain chromoplasts, which is colorful pigments to attract pollinator. Chromoplast ini akan menarik agen debunga, agen pendembungaan. Yeah. Okay, and where can you find these parenchyma cells? You can of course find them in the leaves, you can find them in the stems, and you can find them in the roots. Okay, so this is more diagrams about the parenchyma cell. So, kamu tengok sini, boleh nampak dia punya ruangan yang putih sikit dalam tu. Itu adalah dia punya vacuole. Sekeliling dia adalah cytoplasm, nukleus dia yang hitam, cell wall dia nipis. Dan satu layer sahaja. There's a lot of diagrams here. Take your time to look at each of them. And this is the longitudinal section. Cross section means, hold on. Sekiranya ada yang belum paham, cross-section means saya ambil pisau dan saya potong begini. Macam ngam-ngam tengah-tengah untuk tumbuhan itu. Okay? Kalau longitudinal section means saya potong begini. I'm going to cut in the middle of the plant like this. Ooh, cut like that. I'm not going to cut this because I love my assistants. Right, let's move on to the next type of ground tissue. So, tadi itu saja untuk parenchyma. Sekarang kita pergi kepada collenchyma. Let's look at the structure of collenchyma. Collenchyma are living cells with nucleus, which means when they are mature, they're still alive, they still have the cytoplasm, they still have the nucleus. How is the shape? Collenchyma will be polygonal shape or elongated with tapered ends. Dia berbentuk polygon, means dia punya sisi itu macam lurus lah, bersegi-segi sedikit, memanjang sedikit, dan hujung dia tajam sedikit, tapered ends. The cell walls are unevenly thickened at the corners. Di penjuru-penjuru sel, cell wall dia tidak sekata, dia punya ketebalan tidak sama. Di penjuru-penjuru dia akan lebih tebal. And the cell wall will consist of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin. The cells will be closely packed. There will be no intercellular air spaces. Sel dia disusun dengan padat, dengan rapat, tidak nampak ruangan di antara sel. Dia ada primary cell wall sahaja. It has primary cell wall only, and they will have pits in cell walls. Pits means dia ada lubang di cell wall dia. Okay, apa fungsi collenchyma? The function of collenchyma is for support in herbaceous plants or young parts of plants. So herbaceous plants is plants like my kangkung, tumbuh-tumbuhan yang lembut, dia punya kulit tidak keras. Collenchyma yang menjadi sel yang tampung dia, untuk support dia. Sometimes you can also write flexible support. And it will give mechanical strength and flexibility to the plant to allow the cell to expand as it grows. Dia kasih itu, okay. I'm not sure if I should explain this part to you, but I think it should make sense. Dia pastikan tumbuhan kamu boleh tegak, tapi pada masa yang sama masih fleksibel. So kalau sel itu mau membesar, dia ada ruang, ada kebolehan untuk membesar. Where can you find the collenchyma? You can find the collenchyma in young parts of plant shoots and petioles. So, di bahagian-bahagian tumbuhan yang lebih lembut dan petioles. Apa tuh petioles? Kejap. Okay, so if you're talking about petioles, what is petioles? It is this. Dahan kecil yang menghubungkan daun to whatever it is. Ini adalah petioles. Ini adalah petioles. Sekian. So that is where you will find the collenchyma tissues. Have a look at these diagrams. Tengoklah diagram ni. Tengoklah dia punya cili-cili sel dia. Tengoklah ketebalan primary cell wall dia. Tengoklah diagram ini supaya kalau muncul dalam soalan, terutamanya soalan PSPM dengan UPS, kamu mampu jawab. Jangan lupa ada quiz ya. Tidak lama lagi. Okay. So that is it for collenchyma. Let us move on to the third type of ground tissue, which is sclerenchyma. So ini adalah yang paling keras antara tiga tadi. Let's look at the structure of sclerenchyma, the weirdest ground tissue. First of all, it is a dead cell. So bila dia sudah matang, dia tiada nucleus. It has there are two types of sclerenchyma cells, which are fibers and sclerites. Ada dua bentuk lah. Untuk fibers are elongated polygonal shape with tapered ends. Dia bentuk bersegi-segi, polygon, dan dia memanjang dan hujung dia tajam sikit. For sclerites, they are spherical and isodiametric in shape. Bentuk dia macam bulat sedikit. And all Sclerenchyma cells will have evenly thickened, lignified secondary wall. Dia akan ada cell wall kedua, dipanggil secondary cell wall. Secondary cell wall ini sama tebal di semua sisi dan dia mengandungi lignin. Lignin yang bikin cell wall jadi keras. You will have small lumen in the Sclerenchyma, means lubang di dalam sel itu akan agak kecil. So kamu nampak dia dilabelkan di sini lumen, ruang kecil. With pits. Pits means lubang. So sini kamu nampak dia punya lubang. Present in the cell walls. The cells are tightly packed together with no intercellular air spaces. Kalau kamu rasa Collenchyma tadi sudah cukup padat, Sclerenchyma ini lagilah padat. So dia sangat-sangat padat dan langsung tiada ruangan di antara sel. Okay, this is the two types of Sclerenchyma that I mentioned before, the fiber and the sclerites. Sclerites juga ada nama lain, yaitu stone cells. So, kamu nampak ini maksud dia elongated, polygonal shape with tapered ends. Dia ada thick cell wall that contains lignin. Sclerite macam ini, dalam dia kecil saja lubang, tebal, dia punya cell wall, lepas tu ada lubang-lubang. Cell wall dia pun mengandungi lignin. Okay, so what is the function of Sclerenchyma? The function of Sclerenchyma is for support and protection from mechanical damage. Ya, untuk menampung tumbuhan itu, untuk melindungi tumbuhan itu. And also to provide mechanical strength and rigidity to the plant. Makes the plant stronger and harder. Where can you find Sclerenchyma tissue? You can find the sclerites version of Sclerenchyma in the shells of nuts and in stones of fruits. So, kalau contoh kacang-kacang, okay, kamu boleh tengok lapisan luar kacang itu adalah terdiri daripada Sclerenchyma. Kalau kamu makan buah, contoh kamu makan buah cherry, kamu makan buah peach, ataupun kamu makan buah apple, dia punya biji di dalam itu, biji di tengah itu terdiri daripada Sclerenchyma tissue. Versi sclerites, yang bulat tu. Macam mana pula dengan Sclerenchyma versi fibers? For fiber types, you can find it in wood. So, kayu yang kita gunakan untuk hasilkan perabot yang menjadi tunjang kepada tumbuhan besar, itu terdiri daripada Sclerenchyma versi fibers. What makes your durian tree so hard to chop? Because of the fibers, the Sclerenchyma tissue. You can also find it in the inner bark and the vein of flowering plants. Okay. If you have any questions with this, feel free to ask in the comment section below or message me personally or in our class groups. Okay, so this is the diagrams for Sclerenchyma. Pastikan kamu biasakan tengok diagram ini. Tidak hafal, tidak pandai lukis, tidak apalah. Yang penting, bila kamu kena tanya, bila kamu jumpa gambar dia dalam kuis, kamu dapat kenal pasti bahawa ini adalah kawan saya si Sclerenchyma. Okay. Remember this table. Try to look at this table again. You should be able to identify their diagrams. You should also try to remember their characteristics. Saya cuba ingat dari segi parent colon scleren, PCS, dan saya tahu saya sedang hafal dari yang paling lembut kepada yang sedang-sedang kepada yang paling keras. After you remember which one is the name, how does it look like, you can guess the function. Okay, let's move on. Oh yeah, you can also compare. Bolehlah kamu banding bezakan dia punya perbezaan daripada segi structure. I'm moving on. We are now going to go into the permanent tissues, focusing on vascular tissue, which is xylem and phloem. So we're going into vascular tissue. A vascular tissue is a specialized conducting tissue for transportation of substances such as water, dissolved minerals, and sugar. So things like sucrose or other organic compounds. Dalam arti kata lain, dia yang tolong memunggah atau angkat-angkat barang di dalam tumbuhan. There are two types of vascular tissue. The first, saya mau tanya kamu ba tadi? Okay, pretend you didn't see that. Which one do you think is the one that carries water, and which one do you think is the one that carries sugar? That's right! Xylem is the one that carries water. Padahal sudah nampak tadi kan? Okay, tidak pala, saya pura-pura. And then phloem is the one that will transport sucrose and other organic compounds. Memang vascular tissue ini kita cakap pasal xylem dengan phloem saja. Dan ini adalah gambar raja yang mungkin kamu disuruh untuk lukis masa kamu belajar bio di sekolah menengah. Okay, in this diagram, if you remember this diagram, the xylem is on the inside or outside? Okay, itu kamu pikir-pikir ya. Tinggal balik nota lama. Okay. I am continuing with the xylem. We start with xylem. Let's look at the structure of xylems. Xylems will consist of vessel element and trachea. Macam sel-sel sebelum ni, dia ada dua versi juga. Versi pertama adalah vessel element, versi kedua adalah trachea. Kedua-duanya adalah elongated cylindrical cells. They will be dead at functional maturity, means bila dia matang, dia tiada sudah cytoplasm. They have lignified secondary cell wall. So, ini ada dua lapisan cell wall juga. Dan lapisan kedua ada mengandungi lignin. And the secondary cell walls will be pitted. Ataupun lapisan kedua cell wall itu ada lubang. Lubang yang dimaksudkan adalah ada bahagian yang lebih nipis. Dan bahagian yang lebih nipis yang macam lubang ini, dia masih ada primary cell wall, cuma tiada secondary cell wall. To allow lateral movement of water between segments. Lateral movement of water adalah apa yang ditunjukkan dalam anak panah kecil hitam ini, iaitu dari tube pertama ke tube yang di tepi dan yang kedua di sebelah kanan kiri, depan belakang. Okay. So, let us look at the trachea. Saya cakap tadi ada dua bentuk. Kita tengok bentuk pertama dulu. Bentuk pertama adalah tracheids. They are long, thin cells with tapered ends. Panjang. Tajam di ujung. Water will move from cell to cell through pits. Nampak sini? Pits, lubang-lubang. Air bergerak dari sana. They have secondary cell walls that are hardened with lignin. Okay, ada secondary cell wall, ada lignin. And the function of tracheids are for mechanical support and for transport of water and dissolved minerals from root to shoot. Akar akan serap air, air akan dibawa sampai ke daun-daun at the shoots. So the function of tracheids in xylem is for transport of water. At the same time, it can also provide mechanical support. Now let's look at the second shape or second version of xylems, which is the vessel element. Nampak sudah kan perbezaan dia dari segi bentuk. Okay, the vessel elements are wider, shorter, and they have thinner walls and less tapered than tracheids. So dia pendek, dia lebar sikit, dinding dia nipis sikit dan dia punya hujung tidak berapa tajam. They will align end to end, forming long micropipes. Apa yang dimaksudkan dengan poin kedua adalah dia akan bersusun hujung, jumpa hujung, jumpa hujung untuk membentuk saluran yang panjang. long micropipes. Micro sebab dia kecil lah, sebab dia dari dia level cell. And the end walls of vessel elements are perforated, enabling water to flow freely. Perforated means dia berlubang-lubang. Kamu tengok di sini dia punya hujung ni. Okay, the ends of these walls are perforated. They have pores, they have lubang. That means water can flow up very easily. The function of vessel elements is the same as tracheids, which is for mechanical support and to transport water and dissolved minerals from the roots to the shoots. And this is what they look like under the microscope. Macam geli sikit kan, tapi jangan geli. Ini adalah memang, that's just how it looks like under the microscopes. The big ones are the vessel elements, and the smaller ones are the tracheids. All right, let us move on to the next type of vascular tissue, which is the phloem. Okay, the phloem will consist of a sieve tube and a companion cell. And the sieve tube is the part that is sugar conducting. It is the sugar conducting cell in the phloem. Bila kita mau cakap pasal structure dia, kita start dengan ceritakan sieve tube dulu. So, we look at the sieve tube first. The structure of the sieve tube is that they are alive at maturity, but they have no nucleus, no Golgi body, and no ribosome. So, most organelles will degenerate at maturity. Jadi, tinggal apa dalam sieve tube, walaupun dia tiada nucleus, tiada benda lain, dia masih ada cytoplasm. Itulah kita cakap dia masih hidup. Kenapa dia singkirkan nukleus? Kenapa dia singkirkan dia punya Golgi body dengan ribosom, dengan organel-organel lain? Supaya peraliran bahan-bahan lebih lancar. Facilitate smooth flow of soluble organic compounds. The end walls of the sieve tube are perforated, berlubang-lubang juga, and they will form sieve plates with sieve pores. This is also to facilitate the flow of fluid between sieve tubes. So, fungsi dia memang dua-dua untuk melancarkan pengaliran atau peredaran bahan. And the function of the sieve tube is to transport sucrose or organic compounds from the source to the sink. Okay, later we'll go into that in more detail. We will talk about the other type of cell that you can find in phloem tissue. So the other type of cell that you can see is the companion cell. Kalau kamu tengok dalam gambar raja ini, okay, yang besar macam kosong ini adalah sieve tube. Dan yang di tepi dia, melekat macam lintah ini adalah companion cell, companion kawan. Okay, sel kawan. It is a non-conducting cell. Non-conducting cell means bukan dia yang punggahkan bahan-bahan yang terlarut itu. It's not the one conducting or moving a huge amount of sucrose to other parts of the plants. This companion cell will have nucleus. This companion cell will have many mitochondria to supply ATP to the sieve tube. Sieve tube ini masih makan tenaga, jadi companion cell ini yang akan bekalkan dia tenaga dalam bentuk ATP. This companion cell will be connected to the sieve tube by plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata means they are proteins on the membrane ataupun any. You can consider it an organelle also. Okay, dia akan melekatkan cell wall companion cell kepada cell wall sieve tube. Plasmodesmata. Untuk kasih melekat dia sama-sama. And the companion cell will assist in the sieve tube function. Dia akan tolong sieve tube menjalankan tugas dia. So the function of the companion cell is to help to load and unload sucrose and organic substances into the sieve tube. dia tolong kasih masuk barang, dia tolong kasih keluar barang. And it supplies energy in the form of ATP to the sieve tube. ATP will be produced in the mitochondria of companion cell. Okay, that's it. All right, so let us take a look at this sieve tube member. Okay, so up here we can see the sieve tube. Sieve tube akan nampak macam ni. Dia ada banyak lubang-lubang di tepi. Dia ada lubang-lubang di hujung. Bila kita susun dia, kita boleh nampak ada companion cell di tepi dia. So you can see this is the plasmodesmata yang menghubungkan dua jenis sel ini. So say for example, on this side is the leaf. Okay, selepas companion cell ini, tepi, di sini adalah daun. Daun tempat menjalankan fotosintesis. So photosynthesis will occur here. Product of photosynthesis is you will have glucose, you will have sucrose, okay, bahan-bahan organik. Those products of photosynthesis, those organic compounds, all that sucrose will be brought over here. Dia akan bawa di sini, bawa sampai dia sampai kepada companion cell. Bila dia sampai kepada companion cell, akan berlaku active transport. Active transport of organic compounds occur and they are transported into the sieve tube. Semua gula, bahan-bahan hasil-hasil fotosintesis akan masuk ke dalam sini. Bila dia sudah masuk dalam sieve tube, dia akan pergi kepada, sama ada pergi kepada akar, to the roots, ataupun pergi kepada buah. Kalau ini pokok yang berbuah lah, dan dia akan pergi kepada buah. To the fruits. And then, bila dia sampai akar ataupun dia sampai kepada buah, bahagian itu pun akan ada companion cell yang lain dan companion cell itu yang tolong keluarkan sucrose untuk masukkan ke dalam sel lain. So if you remember just now, we read the words from source to sink. Dari sumber kepada sinki atau tempat mendap. This is the source. Tempat kita hasilkan gula, tempat kita hasilkan sucrose adalah di daun. So the leaves are the source. The sinks, tempat sucrose ini mendap atau digunakan, adalah akar. Sebab akar tidak boleh fotosintesis, jadi daun bekalkan dia dengan makanan ataupun di buah-buahan. Fruits will store the sucrose for the seeds. Okay, buah-buahan akan simpan sucrose itu untuk kegunaan benih nanti. You will learn more about this in semester 2 if you want to learn more about this in semester 2. Okay, thank you very much. And that is pretty much it. So dari tadi saya merepek panjang pasal plant cells and tissues. Saya start dengan meristematic tissue. Saya jelaskan pasal permanent tissue, ground tissue, and vascular tissues. Just a quick recap. Meristematic tissues you can find over here, and also in here. Ground tissue is the Parenchyma, Collenchyma, and Sclerenchyma that you should know how it looks like. You should know how many cell walls it has and other details about the structure. And last but not least, we talk about the vascular tissues, which are xylem and phloem. Setiap daripada ini akan ada dua bentuk. Xylem ada dua versi, phloem ada dua versi sel juga. So make sure you read on them and understand them. Okay, we are the end of chapter 2. We finally finished chapter 2. So what you should do now, you should make your own notes. Do your own notes. Try to include drawings in your notes. We will go over this material again in our next tutorial. And I hope you will complete parts A, B, and C in your chapter 2 tutorial questions. Hari itu soalan tutorial saya minta kamu buat sebahagian saja. So sekarang habiskan mana-mana bahagian yang belum dijawab. Nanti lepas kita sudah semak jawapan, after we have discussed the answers, you can submit them in the Google Classroom. That is all for me. Thank you for sticking with this very long lesson and happy learning. Bye!